I would talk actually just a little bit about how I wrote the piece, because this is a really interesting situation. Most times as composers we sit in our rooms alone from day one, scribbling out our ideas, and then somewhere months, years later we hand it to musicians and they play it, and you might workshop it a little bit. In this case, we came to the first workshop and we didn't have any music with us. And we had to compose sort of onto the musicians. It was almost like choreographing dancers. You're trying to tell them to do things without actually having written instructions for them. So we worked with improvisations and textures, and as the weeks go on, you're more and more pressured to hand them music. So that's what we did, and every week this piece sort of crystallizes, and by now these guys know the piece probably almost better than I do, because they were literally there from the first creation of the first noises of it. So it's a really incredible opportunity, and that's all I really have to say about my piece. So enjoy, Zap.
And I just happened to, I was actually in the end, I was moving my fiddle rather than my bass.
Yeah.
Crunch tone. That's the word I've been looking for.
I was actually playing it up, like above here, so it crunches the pitch even more.
Okay, so you were on the.
I was quite a bit up in the fingerboard.
And you were just
That's
doing.
the sound that you wanted. I was just.
No, I like that. I liked what you're doing a lot. So, cello on the fingerboard. Okay, and switch.
Go back as quickly as possible. Don't go back yet. Keep going, keep going.
Retain attitude.
Retain attitude. Complete polar switch. Now back again.
Yeah, no, you're quite excited.
Big chordal stuff, and then just cutting out and having the bowl come through to hear that in action.
The sustained is one.
Yeah, just play sort of big chordal kind of things, big thick full texture, and maybe a cut off when he's ready. Okay. And then I remembered reading a couple of lines from Walden by Thoreau, where he talks about the trains going past when he's living in the woods, and the sounds of that, and just the experience of trains going and then leaving, and then everything just settles back into nature. So then that kind of really got me going for the rest of what I wanted to do in the piece. And there's sounds that are based on recordings of going to parks and listening to just birds chirping and water running and leaves rustling and squirrels playing and stuff. And also I took some of the actual text and I read it out loud, and I wrote down rhythms and a shape that followed how I would say it. So that's where the main theme comes from.
Maybe from you guys out here, did that sound like anything, or?
It sounded like this day that I was in the park in the winter and the wind was blowing and the trees were like doing that tree sound they do when they're just like creaking.
That sounded pretty creaky.
Yeah, it's like, it sounded like that, which was a really cool sound when I was surrounded by it. So I was like, oh, it's like trees creaking.
Bonjour, mon nom est Pierre-Olivier. Je suis un jeune compositeur qui travaille présentement avec l'ensemble Arraymusic pour une nouvelle composition. Nous sommes présentement en enregistrement de quelques sonorités de percussion. Nous avons eu déjà une répétition avec de l'enregistrement sur le piano, avec les cordes, avec un autre percussionniste également. Donc, ce que je souhaite faire avec la pièce pour la composition, c'est de créer un type d'extension de l'ensemble Arraymusic. Un type d'extension qui est souvent fait grâce à des logiciels de traitement en temps réel comme Max MSP ou d'autres logiciels de traitement en temps réel. Ce que je souhaite faire, c'est créer une bande où est-ce que l'ensemble sera pré-enregistré et un peu avec un petit peu de traitement, donc pour créer des méta-instruments pour la pièce qui sera jouée en concert. That's your wife. Oh. So you'll have to pull the foil up for that part. So nice. Makes kind of interesting vibration. Wow. Okay, so let's try something.
So I don't want to say too much more than what's in the program, the admittedly very short program notes, other than to say that I'm dealing a lot with repetition and patterns, and I was trying to get at something that's a little bit more intuitive. I tend to work a lot with systems. I've been really interested with dealing with writing patterns intuitively, which is it's very scary. It's something like stepping off a cliff for me. So I was searching for a sound, and I think I found it. So we'll see. The other thing I want to say, and sort of add what Christopher was saying, something that really interesting that happens when you have all this time, and it was even Christopher that leaned over and said something to me, especially with this kind of music, which is, my music tends to be maybe a little bit deceptively simple. But when there's a lot of, so people when they see it, they'll rehearse it fairly quickly and say, you know, yeah, we've got it. But when they rehearse it for a long time, there was a moment where, you know, things started to relax, and then the music all of a sudden opened up and started to take on a whole life of its own. And that couldn't have happened without this kind of situation, so I'm very grateful. So I hope you enjoy it.
The first one, what I want is everybody to play sort of in their low register. Choose a note, play it anywhere roughly 3 to 10 seconds. You can also choose a double stop for the piano chord, something maybe nice and clustery in the low register would be nice. And then choose a new note, new chord every repetition. Feel free to repeat it right away or leave some space in between the notes. And then maybe what we'll do is just like a short 2 or 3 minute improvisation. And what I want is to gradually start incorporating more and more short little energetic kind of dynamic bursts in the low register, so something like